or comments?
How was your lunch?
The cake was very delicious, actually.
In the first part, the word imperturbability keeps popping up. Can you talk a little bit about
Keep it to the next question.
Can you talk a little bit about the imperturbability that's so prevalent in the first part of that sutra? Because I wasn't here last week. I apologize.
Okay, so I just will renew it.
Keep
Yeah, it's a nature, it's a noun. It's based on, well, there's a verb, injiti, which has the meaning of to move, to shake, to quiver, to tremble. And then it's negated. The verb is injiti, the past participle injita, which takes on the function of a noun, like quivering, trembling, shaking, and then it's negated with an, and so then we get the noun anenja, which means that which is imperturbable, which the non-shaking, non-quivering state. And it's used to refer to, sometimes it refers to the fourth jhana and the formless meditations. Sometimes it just refers to the formless meditative absorptions. So because the idea is that even in the lower three jhanas, there's still thought. In the first jhana, thought and examination. In the second jhana, there's still joy or piti. In the third jhana, there's still sukha or bliss.
So that's still considered an unstable or a...
Of course, compared to ordinary consciousness, they're much more stable and peaceful. But still, those are a little bit of disturbances. And so in the fourth jhana, even the blissful feeling is replaced by a dukkha sukha vedana, the feeling that's neither painful nor pleasant. And so that's, and it's in the fourth jhana, equanimity becomes very prominent. And so that's a much more stable state. And then beyond the fourth jhana, the formless meditations are also accompanied by the same feeling, which is neither painful nor pleasant, and the strong equanimity. So they're considered, in that sense, imperturbable. But it's not really the unshakable imperturbable, or it's not really the ultimate or final imperturbability, which comes through the destruction of the defilements, because even those who master these meditations can get reborn in the formless sphere of existence, but then they'll remain there maybe for 10,000, 20, 40, 20,000, 40,000, 60,000, 80,000 aeons, but then they pass away. And so they're still fragile in that sense. Okay, Sukhi. Take the mobile microphone.
The meaning of emptiness in this chapter and the one in previous chapter, do I understand it as like empty of disturbances, or when
In
I
the
ca-
previous sutta, sutta number 121, if you remember, the Buddha speaks about successive grades of emptiness, in which he starts off, well, even from sense, from sense experience, where one thing is empty, the hall in which they've gathered is empty of elephants, people, and so forth. And then he moves from the hall to the perception of the forest, which is empty of the people, of the monks within the hall, then going from forest to the earth, and then through the successive formless attainments, and each is empty of that which comes before of it, but one recognizes what is present as being present. And so the emphasis in the previous sutta seems to be on, at least initially, on emptiness within successive states of samadhi, higher states of samadhi, till we come, there's not an explicit treatment of vipassana, of insight in that sutta, but when they speak about the signless concentration of mind, according to the commentaries, that's taken to be the concentration associated with insight. And then that's followed by the destruction of the asavas, the taints. And so then the experience of the arahat is said to be empty of the taints, though what's present, he recognizes what is present, which is the disturbance due to the 6 types of sense objects, right?
Yes.
Okay, this sutta doesn't really specify very clearly what is meant by emptiness. So I just had to conjecture when explaining it. Now, what is meant here perhaps is with reference to sutta number 43, where they speak about 2 kinds of emptiness, liberation of mind through emptiness. And the one which is mundane is the state which is attained by contemplating all this, that's all experience, is empty of a self or anything belonging to a self. And then also there is a sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 35, I think it's around 85, 86, where Ananda comes to the Buddha and says, Bhante, there's a saying that the world is empty. In what way is the world empty? And then the Buddha answers that the world is empty, what is meant, the eye and forms are empty of a self and anything belonging to a self. The ear and sounds, nose and odors, taste, tongue and taste, body and tactile objects, mind and mental objects. They're all empty of a self or anything belonging to a self. So that seems to be, I would conjecture, the meaning of emptiness intended in this sutta, the samadhi, which is based upon contemplating in that way. Okay, see you.
Thank you.
Bhante, so, excuse me, like in maybe based on that same line, on like section 16, when a person concentrates on the 5 aggregates.
Yeah.
So perhaps, when one has, the proper, rather with mindfulness, one could observe maybe the material aggregate, observing it as non-self, you know, and maybe the sensation coming up. But at a certain point, if somehow one looks inside, all of a sudden, you see, like, as long as one looking outside at the sensations
Yeah.
or the material form, you could always see it's separated. It's
Yeah.
I'm here, it's there, so it's
Yeah.
it's not me.
Yeah,
But the moment one perhaps looks inside, there is I,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
this kind of a mirror reflection of
Yeah.
I. So what is that? Is that the conceit, or is that the Sakkaya Ditthi itself?
I would say that what you call the mirror reflection of I is the conceit, or that comes about through the conceit I am. It turns into Sakkaya Ditthi, or the view of self, when one sort of takes that spontaneous appearance of the sense of I to be indicating a genuine self, a self which is real, which has existence in itself. And then one on that basis, one posits that this is the self, that there is a real self. And then one has to try to fill in its identity by saying, what is that self? Is it the owner or master of the five aggregates? Is it an inner subject of experience? Is it, maybe it's the aggregate of consciousness or the mind? Someone is trying to give identity to the sense of I. But somebody who is a stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, for them too, the sense of I will appear, but they've already seen into the selfless nature of phenomena. And so when the sense of I appears, they'll recognize that is just a sort of reflection of ignorance. That's just a delusion. And so they don't buy into it. They don't grasp hold of it, or they don't take it to be pointing to the existence of a real self. They'll just see that this is due to the vestige of ignorance that remains in the mind, ignorance and the conceit I am.
So at which point does that mirror gets broken? In other words, you look in and
Completely gone.
yeah?
Whereas completely eradicated, it would only be with the attainment of arhatship. Otherwise, it's like, in the example from the Kemika Sutta, it's like the fragrance comes out from the flower, but one doesn't identify the fragrance with any part of the flower.
Well, you mentioned that it has to be experience. Once you get into arahantship, but for us would be, or the lay person, or even a monk, would be just based on faith that it happens and that there's no self. Because if we have not experienced that, then how do we know? We only base it on faith, right? That is no self, because we have not yet experienced that, so there's no concrete evidence because we have not gotten to that level yet.
I would say even before realization takes place, one could still use a kind of investigation or examination of one's experience, so it won't be direct, penetrative insight, but one starts looking and considering what is actually taking place when one experiences something, what is there, and then by paying attention to one's experience, one sees that, okay, there's the material component, there's feelings occur, they're called sensations or feelings, there are perceptions, there are acts of volition, then there's an awareness of all this, but one sees that, when one tries to find what is the self behind all of this experience, what does it consist in? One never really, what does it consist in? One never really finds anything there.
Well, in my own experience, when I tried insight meditation, and of course, I would just concentrate on the pain, say, for example,
Yeah.
and I would just watch the pain moving, whichever way it will be, or if it's hot. But then again, of course, I see pain and I see suffering, but when it comes to the anatta, it's like, I don't know if I could tell you I did, I may have, I don't know, but I cannot tell you that I did, of course, because I haven't. So that's when I went from inside, I went back into samadhi. Maybe
Yeah.
I thought I needed more training. Is
Yeah.
that one reason, because of that lack of samadhi?
Well, certainly samadhi provides us, or concentration provides a stronger basis for insight. But some people can get insight into
Right.
non-self without having that stronger base of samadhi.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Victor. Dina, did you have your hand? Okay.
Hi, Bhante. Every time we talk about the 5 aggregates, and even during Abhidhamma retreat, when we were really breaking down the chittas, etc., it seems like everything is so robotic that, one time I saw a demonstration of a really advanced robot
Yeah.
that, had kind of like an eye consciousness here, like he could recognize you when he sees you, and, he was able to walk, kick a ball. It was like a really advanced robot. And so, whenever we talk about this, it's like, I think like, wow, this is like that robot. It just follows like a programming, the 5 aggregates.
No, it's actually very different.
Is it? Because,
You'll come up to that robot and stick a pin in it, and
right, but if you program it to recognize that it's pain,
you have to program it.
yeah, that's true.
You take a little baby and you stick it
Yeah, it's
with,
natural.
well, of course you don't want to do that, but suppose
Right.
a little baby rolls over and gets stuck with a pin, it's going to cry out. It's
That's
not
true.
programmed.
But like when we, I remember during the Abhidhamma retreat, the chittas follow these predefined rules, like, every.
There's a certain fixed sequence to them.
Yeah. So it was like, wow, it's kind of like a programming in a way, at least from the Abhidhamma perspective. But
Except it's not occurring really so robotically or automatically in that, okay, certain chittas, let's say certain chittas are very strongly determined by the nature of the object. So they'll arise naturally in response to the object. Like say if one sees a pleasant form, then there'll occur what is called a wholesome resultant
Right.
visual consciousness, followed by a wholesome resultant receiving consciousness, wholesome wholesome resultant investigating consciousness, determining consciousness. Those are pretty much all automatic, but then it's the jhana stage in which volition kicks in and we determine our own response to the object.
right.
Whereas a robot, first, I don't think robots have consciousness.
No.
They might be programmed to behave as if they have consciousness,
Exactly.
but they don't. And then they don't have, for this reason, they don't really have volitional choice, but maybe the programming can be very detailed, very complex, but at some point there's a definite fixed sequence that it has to follow according to the programming.
Yes.
Whereas we ourselves, because we have consciousness,
Right.
we are, in a sense, to a degree, what I would call free subjects who determine our own responses.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not saying we're robots. I'm just saying that it's like, when you break it down, it seems like it's, I don't know, because we're made up of so many different,
Yeah, but
different
there's
parts.
a certain point beyond which automatic and natural responses give way to what I would call volitional responses,
Right. And
which
that's
of
the-
course are to some extent conditioned by our own backgrounds and understanding and so on, but still there's an element of choice within there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to allude to is our responses are based on our preconditioning. That is a huge part of it.
They play a role, of course.
And of course, there's also karma as well, that it leaves the imprints.
Yeah,
which
there are the
robots
imprints of
robots
karma,
don't
yeah.
develop karma, so, yeah.
But we always have, even under the most dire circumstances, I say we always have a certain margin of freedom by which we can, through our choices, we can break away from our past karmic conditioning. I use the example very often of somebody who's maybe he's offered a cigarette. He's not a smoker. So he says, nah, I don't want it. But his friend says, go on. It said, be a man. You're not a kid anymore. And then images of the Marlboro Man riding a
Right.
horse out in the plains of Montana flashed through his mind. He says, okay, I'll take it. So here he has a choice, and he takes the choice to smoke. Then, maybe a few months go by, and he's smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. And whenever he wakes up in the morning, first thing he has to do is reach for a cigarette and smoke. So he'll say, okay, I'm determined, I can't stop, I can't help myself, this is the way my conditioning is. But anytime he wants, if he really is determined, he could do something to break the habit and then get free of it.
Right.
Matt?
This refers to the beginning of the sutta, where he is talking about trivial topics of discourse. And two that he mentioned are the origins of the oceans and the origins of the world.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's sort of saying scientific inquiry is not a legitimate pursuit.
I think, I don't really know the background to that, but I think this might be an allusion to maybe like Vedic accounts about the beginning of the world.
One turtle on top of another turtle. And
Excuse me?
one turtle on top of another turtle in terms of the...
I think that became the traditional Indian explanation.
Okay. So there, he doesn't have anything, against scientific inquiry?
I don't think so, because
that-
there have been now, in Buddhist countries now, there are scientists who are physicists and astronomers
Yeah,
who are Buddhists.
thank you.
And then this is for monks who are fully committed to the training. But it's interesting to, even for a monastic, to investigate cosmological theories, modern cosmological theories.
Perhaps it's another way of getting into non-self and impermanence, because the universe is changing.
Yeah. Kim Bayham. In person, yeah.
Here, Kim.
Thank you, Bhante. The text mentioned about abiding in voidness,
Yeah.
and I was just wondering, is this a state of meditation where basically thoughts are not coming to our mind, or is that basically the selfless, realizing the selflessness nature of our existence? I'm not quite sure in what context the use of
The
voidness.
sutta itself doesn't actually, as I said, it doesn't explain what's meant by abiding in voidness here. So my supposition, as I said earlier, is that this is referring to sort of the deep meditative contemplation of non-self, the selfless nature of the five aggregates or the six sense bases and their objects. It's not simply a state where thoughts are not occurring, because that could be any state of the second jhana or higher. But this would be, I would say it's a meditative concentration focused on non-self.
It wouldn't be the formless states?
No, because those are being referred to by the imperturbable.
Yeah, and that's my second question. What does that really mean by input?
You came a little late, because
Oh, okay.
Sam here asked the same question, and then I explained here. But basically, it's referring to, I just gave the verbal derivation here, but what it's referring to is the fourth jhana and the formless meditations above the fourth jhana. Because in those states, the coarser mental factors like thought, joy, and bliss, which are in the first, second, third jhanas, have now been dropped, and the feeling has turned to the neutral feeling, which is neither painful nor pleasant, and equanimity has become very prominent. And so these states are very, very stable, very calm and peaceful, and so they're called imperturbable.
So the imperturbability comes before the formless.
Well, if we take the fourth jhana as also part of the imperturbable, then the fourth jhana and the formless meditations are the imperturbable. But some suttas or some passages seem to restrict the term imperturbable to the formless meditations and have the fourth jhana below the imperturbable. So there seems to be some difference in usage.
Bhante, I want to refer to page 1333, the notes, 1140. He abandons the perception of forest and attends to the perception of earth, because one cannot achieve any distinction in meditation through the perception of forest. Neither access...
Let me just get the note. What was the note number?
The note is 1140.
Oh, wait, okay, I see it.
It's a 1333 in the notes.
Okay, I see it, yeah.
So Bhante, am I understanding this correctly, that is just a way to strengthen our concentration? We cannot develop insight on the
Forest?
in other words, the earth, the four elements meditation?
Okay, what it's saying, okay, one cannot achieve any distinction in meditation through the perception of forest, neither access, concentration, or full absorption. I think what it means by this is that first, the term distinction here is a sort of technical term, which is in Pali visesa, which here it's referring to either access, concentration, or absorption. And the reason why he's saying that the forest can serve as a basis for that is that I guess if one is focusing on the forest and all the different trees in the forest, seeing the forest for the trees, then one has a multiplicity or diversity within the perceptual field. And so one doesn't have the uniformity of the object which is required in order to gain deeper samadhi or concentration. So my own feeling would be that, or my assumption, that if one is looking at a really green forest where all the trees are blossoming with leaves, and one sort of instead of focusing on the multiplicity of trees, one just lets all of the green in the perceptual field sort of merge together by loosening up one's eyes a little bit and just apprehending the green of the forest, then one could get the perception of green and use that as like a kasina object in order to develop the green kasina. There's actually neither can be blue or green. And so I say in that way, you could actually use the forest in order to attain distinction. But he's probably what the commentary has in mind is where one is focusing on the different trees, and so because there are multiple objects, so one isn't just focusing upon one simple uniform object. So that seems to be the point.
Okay. I don't recall where I've read it, but I've read somewhere that you cannot gain absorption or access through the four elements meditation. Did I misread that?
No, that is correct. That is, if one is doing what's called the four elements meditation, that is really, primarily it's an insight meditation. But one can use any of the four elements as a kasina object for developing jhana. So we have like the earth casino, which is the round disc, which is filled with clay. The water casino, which would be a bowl of still water. There's the fire casino, which I don't know anybody who's ever used it. But they say that you have a fire burning, and then you have in front of it like a panel in which there's a circle cut out, and then you're getting the impression of fire. But it seems that's always moving, so I don't know how it could serve as a good casino object. And the air casino, I have to say, I'm completely bewildered. Usually, the monks that I know who've done casino meditation, it's either the earth casino or one of the color casinos.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, I think we could just take one more question, then we'll have to end it, because there'll be another group coming in here soon.
Bhante, how does one know when one moves from the fourth jhana into the formless meditation? What's the trigger? How does one recognize that? Because I'm not quite sure what formless meditation means.
It means the base of infinite space, base of infinite consciousness, base of nothingness, base of neither perception nor non-perception. You have to go back. I think I explained this in my lectures on Sutta number 1. You haven't been listening to the lectures. I think it was the first class on Sutta 121. There are 2 classes.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, we'll have to end for the day. And next week we will have the class, Sutta, this will be an interesting one, Sutta 123. These are Sutta about it's called Wonderful and Marvelous Qualities. It's about the wonders and marvels that take place with the birth of the Buddha or Bodhisattva. So it's interesting for purpose of to see the forming of the Buddha. It's called the Buddha legend, if it is a legend, or the story about the Buddha's birth that becomes part of the tradition. Okay, so let us end with 3 bows, half bows.